Breakdown, papare.com's weekly segment where we bring you all the ins and outs of Sri Lankan rugby. And these 3 weeks have been marred with schools rugby, and we've been overwhelmed with schools rugby. But we have some national rugby news to bring to you. The national squad will be representing Sri Lanka at the Asian Rugby Sevens in Borneo, Malaysia this weekend. Let's run through the squad, Chanaka. We have 6 players from Kandy Sports Club: Dhanushka Ranjan, Srinath Surya Bandara, Dhanush Dayan, Jason Disanaika, Richard Dharmapal and Sir Anthony, that's from Kandy Sports Club, and Mututantri and Kevin Dixon from Havelocks, Kamidu Pereira and Omar Gunaratna from CRN FC, and Salih Handapangudu from Navy Sports Club, and Reesa Rafaidin from Police Sports Club. We have a new coach taking on the Tuskers to this Asian 7 series, Coach Peter Wood. How do you think this will pan out for the Tuskers?
Well, I haven't met Peter Woods, so I don't know what his philosophy is, Sudarshan. But I remember when we got the good coaches coming in. We got Ben Gollings, and I think the intensity of the training was outstanding at that point. And Sri Lanka probably did their best in sevens rugby. And then we had Matt Turner a little while ago as well, coaching the sevens team. So Peter Woods has a couple of big pairs of shoes to fill. So let's see how he does. I don't want to say anything too much about this, but I like the squad. I like the fact that Jason Disanaika is back. He has been outstanding for Sri Lanka. Soiri Anthony also, it's good to have him in the side. Sudarshan Mututantri, Omalka Gunaratha. So you've got some forwards who can make a difference, and that's where Sri Lanka have lacked previously. I hope that they play that kind of physical brand of rugby that they sometimes need to play, especially in a sevens tournament like this. And you've got the finishers. You've got Dhanushka Ranjan, who's a world-class finisher. You've got Richard Dharmapala, who has been outstanding right throughout the season. You've got Kamidu Pereira with outstanding pace as well. So it's a good balanced squad. A few, maybe Shehan Pathiran I would have liked to see in the squad as well, but maybe they're saving him for the 15s.
Definitely, and also don't forget, this is just the start of the 7 series, and the big one comes when we visit Hong Kong at the Hong Kong 7. So maybe they're trying out the options in the initial one as well. And now let's move on to what has been the main story of rugby when it comes to Sri Lankan rugby. 10th of March, on Friday, we had Science College playing Prince of Wales, and Science finally getting into winning ways with 69 points to 3 scoreline. That's a big scoreline to win your first game.
Yeah, it is, and that's why I'm a bit surprised at how big the scoreline was. I didn't expect them to score as many as 11 tries. I expected them to win the game, but it's a really good morale booster for Science because they've lost their first 2 games. They're a team that has lost quite a few of their players as well, so to get this big performance under their belt, that's a big one for them going forward.
Definitely, Science running in 11 tries, converting 7 against Prince of Wales 3 points. So that's a good one for Coach Ibrahim. He will try to build from there onwards, and Science College this season, they will try and remain in the big league.
Yeah, I think that's their short-term target. I think they need to make sure that they get enough wins to stay up. And this is one win in that direction. So if they get a couple more, I think they'll be quite happy with that. They've got to target their games.
Next game, 11th of March, DS Senanayaka College hosted St. Peter's in Valisara. Not a very usual ground for schools rugby to happen, but DS Senanayaka has adopted Valisara as their home grounds, and 5 points to 36 St. Peter's winning the game. But do you think it will be a satisfactory win for St. Peter's?
Well, I think St. Peter's needed this win, Sudarshan. They didn't have a great time against St. Anthony's. That was a very narrow win. Then against Royal also, they lost a game that they probably should have won, given the way that they started out that game and the opportunities that they had. So obviously it's good for them to get a win against this newly promoted DS Senanayaka side, but I'm not sure it's something that they will be very happy about when they watch the video. You know, were they dominant? Were they a team that cut the others open? Was that something that happened for St. Peter's? Probably not on the day, but a win is a win, and a 31-point win, that's enough for them at the moment, I think.
So that was the story. 31 points, 2-5. DS Senanayaka, again the other team that got promoted to A division. They are still winless in this league, and they will also try and turn things around in the league so that they can remain in the top division. Sunday, 12th March, we had 2 very interesting games, and first one, Isipathana College taking on St. Anthony's at Havelock Park. Full-time score 43 points to 35. St. Anthony's with a second half surge where they trailed at half-time 24 points to 13. But the big talking point after this game was Samuel Madhuanta, the reliable kicker, leaving 16 points on the park, Shanaka.
Yeah, that's a bit of a shame, and I didn't expect that from him. But perhaps just the occasion got a little bit better of him. And I think at Havelock Park, sometimes with the crowd so close to you, it might be a little bit difficult, especially when it's a hostile away crowd as well. So he will learn from this. Learn from this episode, and given the fact that it was just an 8-point game in the end, given that both teams scored 20 points at halftime, this is what St. Anthony's need to prevent. They need to prevent teams getting away from them in that first quarter of the game. They're a team that take a little bit of time to settle down. Maybe it's the pressure, maybe it's the fact that they're not confident in their own game plan, because when the pressure is off and they're trailing, they seem to play much better. They seem to play with much freedom. So that's a mental thing, and I think Coach Viper needs to work on that aspect of the game, where they need to start well and make sure that they keep playing each minute of each game rather than waiting for the game to get away from them and then trying to come back.
That's about Anthony's, but let's talk about Isipatana, Shanaka. Yes, this is a win, but they have more troubles to address than Anthony's, because all their wins have come in very shoddy fashion.
Well, yes, they've got a defensive problem. I think that's something that we can all agree on. And I think Coach Bilal Hassan and Lacinta Costa need to look at that aspect of their game and see whether that's something they need to do more with in preparation, because leading up to the games, there's no point if you're scoring 5 tries but you're letting in 6. So even against St. Joseph's, I think they allowed St. Joseph's to play too much rugby, and that's the problem that Isipatana is having at the moment. They're allowing other teams to come into games. They're not closing it out. They're not as clinical as they were last year, but it's a young side, and I think they will learn. So it's a forwards related issue at the moment. I think they need to make sure that they win those collisions up front, which they're not doing enough. And if they do that, then they're going to be a dangerous team.
End of the day, Isipatana will be very happy, because 3 out of 3 they are topping Group 1A segment, and we'll move on to the next game. Oliver E. Gunathilaka Trophy back with the Double Blues. Wesley College, what a comeback that was.
Outstanding comeback, Sudarshan. They've been a team that has been under the cosh over the last couple of weeks. They had that massive fight against Trinity, which led to a lot of their players being temporarily banned until that ban was revoked. And then the fact of that Trinity match as well, they lost by 40 points in what is a big year of rugby for them. So that would have set them back as well. Coach Jeevan Gunathilaka resigning after that game as well. That would have been a huge blow for them. He's been with this team for a couple of years now as well. So it would have been a real mentally low position that Wesley were coming from. But when they came back after half time at the 40-minute mark at CRNFC, that they looked a different side, and they knew that they had nothing to lose, and let's go for this, and this team is beatable. And it was a really good comeback that they made in the end. Murshid Zubair, I thought, was outstanding for Wesley. He fashioned quite a few things. He was in the thick of it, and despite the fact that he doesn't have a lot of pace and that he's a young player, the hands and the vision that he's got are really outstanding. And I thought he was key in that try that actually won the game for them, to take them from 19-18 to 23-19. That was really the key to that game. And St. Thomas's, speaking to Coach Laga after the game, and I think they just froze. In the second half, even against Zahira, they scored in the first 5 minutes of the second half, scored nothing for the next 35 minutes of that game. Now against Wesley College, they've scored all their points in the first half, not a single point in the second half of the game. So you've got to address it and see, is it a conditioning issue? Are we fit enough to carry on for this 80 minutes? Do we have enough depth on our bench to come out and finish games off? Those are a few soul-searching questions that St. Thomas's need to ask.
Like Shanaka mentioned, Murshid Zubair was absolutely outstanding for Wesley College, picking up the ThePapare Player of the Match award as well. And the score breakdown, let's take a look at it, because it was a very close game. Tries coming in from Awantali, Imesh Aponso, Zayan Dole and Murshid Zubair for Wesley College. Avish Khalib thumping in a penalty, and St. Thomas's, Adi Shahandum Patana, Sharid Nanakar and Naveen Hinakankanam get touching down, with Dion Dias converting two. Now, Naveen Hinakankanam, we saw how effective he was last season. This season, he's heavily marked.
Well,
And also, he plays at the wing 3 position. Do you think he tried coming into the second centre position during the Wesley game, which didn't quite pan out? Do you think it's better for him to start at the number 13 jersey?
I don't think so, Sudarshana, because that's something that Coach Laga has tried in the preseason, and I don't think it's something that works out, because Naveen is not a distributor. He's a guy who likes to run with the ball, and I like to see him coming in off his wing and hitting those gaps. He scored a wonderful first phase try in against Wesley as well, to close off the first half. It was a beautiful try, and even in the Zahira game, he was cutting the defense open from where he plays. So yes, he can't hang out on the wing all the time. He needs to come in and look for work. I'd like to see him just outside Hans Walpola, coming in, or just inside Hans Walpola as well. But the problem for me, as far as St. Thomas's were concerned, is that Walpola was playing way too flat. So when you play flat, you don't give Navin enough time to size up where the gap is and run into that gap, because the defense is up to you so quickly. So that's something that St. Thomas's need to work with their halfbacks on, to get the pass a little bit further, a little bit flatter, and for Hans Walpola to play a little bit further back, so that he allows Navin that freedom to run onto the ball either inside him, outside him, or into the second centre gap. Because once he cuts you open, then it's the centre's job to, whether it's Chanuk or whether it's Sarit Nanayakar or Matangavira or whoever it may be, it's their job to support Navin, because he's not going to be finishing as much as he was last year.
So there you go, plenty of things to think about for the Thomians, because they will be playing another trophy game come next week, Canon Advisarum Trophy. That's going to be very crucial for them as well. And moving on to the last two games of the third week of Singer Schools Rugby. 13th March, Monday, Shanaga doesn't like this, because games happening on Monday, he misses it, and a lot of people do. And there were two very big games. Dharmaraja taking on Royal College, 8 points to 15 at halftime. Dharmaraja was in the lead, 15-all up until the 79th minute of the game. Ovin Aski with a drop goal wins it for Royal.
Well, we've been saying this about Royal, haven't we, Sudarshan? In the last 3 weeks, we've been saying it, that they know how to win games. And Aski is, I think he's become a really cool customer over the course of the last year. He wasn't this kind of player last year, but now he's really come into his own and he's bossing games. But he needs to ask himself, do we need to be there? Do I need to be taking these kicks at the 79th minute of the game? We should be winning these games by more. And that's something that I think Royal will need to ask themselves. You know, are we closing out games that we should be winning much easier? And that's something that they're not doing. I don't think they expected Dharmaraja to come at them as hard as they did. I don't think they expected to concede the 2 tries that they did. But Dharmaraja, I thought, were brave. They had nothing to lose, and they played like that, and they enjoyed that game. So Royal need to figure out their defense. It's a bit of a problem at the moment, and they can't rely all the time on coming through in these last gasp wins.
And talking about Dharmaraja, not much has been said about this team. Dharmaraja troubled the Sipatani in the opening game. Here again, they've troubled Royal, so that's a team to keep an eye out on, because they have some very big players. Brother of Udangamua playing in that side as well, and he's been leading from the front. So they are a team to watch out for.
They're a team to watch out for. Watch out for Zahira, watch out for Dharmaraja. These are the teams that are going to cause upsets, if at all. And I think, thankfully for the other teams, I think Royal has sent a warning message to everyone else saying, watch out for Dharmaraja. It's not an easy win.
Absolutely, and also playing in Kandy, it was wet conditions. Dharmaraja used it beautifully to get in front of Royal, because remember, Royal is not the big pack that we normally see from the Reed Avenue boys. They are quite small compared to the other sides as well.
They're small, but they're well drilled, Sudarshan, and technically I think they're outstanding, and they can go for that 80 minutes. That's something that not many of the teams can. And you look at St. Joseph's, you look at St. Thomas's, maybe Trinity to a lesser extent, but Royal's pack are always fighting. And right up to the 80th minute, whether they need to push a big push in the scrum in the 75th minute, they'll get it. If they need a line out maul in the 78th minute, they'll get that as well. So in terms of conditioning, in terms of strength and technique, I think these guys are way ahead of anybody else, even though they're small.
Hamza Riza coming back into the Royal starting 15 after laying out due to injury in the last game. Picked up the Player of the Match award in that previous game. A testament to what Chanaka just mentioned, Royal 8, they are very well drilled, they are technically very savvy. And moving on to the final game of the week, Zahira College taking on Trinity. Remember, Zahira was the first team to beat Trinity ever, and Zahira came very close to doing it again.
Well, they led in the second half, didn't they? 26 points to 24. At one stage, Zahira, and I thought, I know the Trinitian fans, you included, probably had your hearts in your mouths for a moment. But I think the quality of this Trinity team is too good. Sudarshana. They've got a lot of depth off the bench. They've got guys who've been there and done that before, that A division experience. So in that sense, Zahira had a mountain to climb. I thought they climbed it wonderfully well. But they just couldn't get beyond that final hurdle. And I thought Trinity did well to keep their composure at a time that the game was not slipping away from them, but at a time that they were behind on the scoreboard. They kept their composure well in hostile conditions, and they managed to come out with a win. And I think that's the sign of a very good side.
And talking a little more about Zahira, Zahid Singh once said that boy is turning out to be an absolute star alongside Yusra and Lanta. He has absolutely brilliant speed when it comes to. We were in the commentary box with Paul Toya, and Paul could not believe his eyes because Lantra, that individual try he scored, he just had a half an opening there.
Yeah, it was, and he scored a similar try against St. Thomas's as well, and he just manages to ghost through gaps that other people don't see. Sudarshan, his standing start is so quick. He's just so quick off the mark, and he's really one to watch. I wish he was a little bit bigger. He'd be in the Sri Lanka team already.
Absolutely, and for Trinity, Dilesh Kadange touching down twice. He scored a hat-trick against Science College, coming in and touching down twice. Dange has really come on to his own. He wasn't this good last season. I'm not saying he wasn't good, but he wasn't this good last season. But number 13 jersey, he's just made it his own.
Well, it's a great position, isn't it? If you're a good player, Sudarshan, that number 13 position that really brings out the best in you. And Dange has, he was okay in the last couple of seasons. He was just okay, but now he's really become, blossomed into an outstanding player. And I think he scored last year in the Canon RSC Serum Trophy as well. And he's got a knack for finding that try line. So I think if his distribution skills keep going the way he has, if he keeps getting a little bit better at putting his wingers away and finding space, I think he's going to be a very dangerous player.
But I thought Anuka Boyagoda was the one who pulled all the strings for Trinity College.
Well, he did in that first match against Wesley as well, didn't he? He's the guy who really keeps that whole engine ticking. He's like the gearbox almost. He realizes when they need to go into a lower gear, when they need to go into a higher gear. He speeds the ball up when he has to, and the way he keeps that fringe defense guessing when he runs off his first couple of runners, and then he's looping around them. They don't know whether he's going to straighten up and go through the gap. They don't know whether he's going to find an inside ball and an outside ball. And when a defense is in two minds, that's when they're the most vulnerable.
Interesting what Shanak just mentioned. Take a look at this clip. This was the winning try for Trinity College. Anuka Boyagoda coming into the ruck, he realizes that there is nobody on the short side, and he quickly makes the decision to run around and scores under the post. So this is what Boyagoda is capable of. And let's talk a little about Zahira College. Mohammad Irfan, the captain.
He's a big lad, isn't he?
He's a big lad, and he's leading from the front. Those forwards are very committed forwards, and you've mentioned this on the breakdown before as well. Shamli Nawaz is a shrewd player, shrewd coach. He's made sure that all his players turn out and listen to every word he says. So there you go, two schools, Dharmaraja College and Zahira College, to keep an eye out on, who could be the giant killers of this season. And that's it from us on the breakdown for this week. Until next time, sharing the passion.